Hey guys, RoboCop here, and welcome to This Week in Gaming, your weekly news recap on everything going on in the world of video games. Today, we finally have info from Battlefield Labs testing. Forever Winter made a gigantic change, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is back on the menu, and much more. Battlefield Labs playtests are underway this week, and despite a strict NDA, tons of gameplay footage has found its way online. You can imagine the surprised look on my face. In a nutshell, the work-in-progress build of the game looks a lot like Battlefield 4. The HUD elements, gameplay, and general presentation of the game all look very similar. There's even a preview window showing the POV of whoever you pick to spawn on the deploy screen, a popular feature from BF4. Vehicle resupply stations are returning from Battlefield 5, and they seem to replenish both ammo and health. As for stuff that looks new, the destruction is a lot more granular and detailed than past games. The map for the playtest is also called Abbasid, which likely confirms a North African or Middle Eastern setting. The teaser footage of the map had text that mentioned Egypt. It also looks like the game is dispensing with the named characters and is instead back to the traditional class system. Overall, it's looking like a big return to form for the franchise. That said, it's also clearly unfinished content with tons of missing textures, glitches, and bugs. A lot about the title could still be in flux, so we'll have to wait till later playtests to confirm DICE's ultimate vision for Battlefield. Now, DICE also released news about this Battlefield Labs playtest and what they're going for with a lengthy blog post. In this test, they've worked to reduce the input delay between when you hit the fire button and when bullets actually fire in-game. Obviously, the result should feel more responsive. They also mentioned that they're building the game for a 60 Hz server tick rate. Server tick rate can play a pretty big role in how responsive a multiplayer game feels, but the tick rate doesn't necessarily dictate the tick rate of every system in the game. It's usually the cap at which the most important systems can run it. And 60 Hz is pretty standard these days, with only the most competitive FPSs pushing for higher than that. But with a game as dense as Battlefield and with as many players, likely the data rates had to be slowed down just to make it economical. DICE are also tuning their weapon recoil. They've implemented a new system that ensures what recoil does is accurately reflected in the direction that you point the gun. So if you fire a shot that recoils your bullets up and to the right, then the gun model will also point in that direction rather than a random direction. Fans of Battlefield 5's more evolved movement system will be happy to hear that DICE are bringing back the game's crouch sprint, combat dive, and landing roll. They're also adding new visual indicators to clarify when vaulting or leaning are possible. The extremely hardcore dystopian extraction shooter, The Forever Winter, has finally relented on its most punishing mechanic. When the game originally launched in early access last year, it featured a pretty brutal resource system where your base's water supply would slowly deplete in real time even when you weren't playing the game. Water was effectively the lifeblood of your base, so when it hit zero, it wiped out all your progress too. The real-time penalty proved to be an incredibly divisive design choice, but the game's latest update has completely reworked the water system and removed the real-time penalty. Water is now a currency that can be traded with players and is required to access entry points in the game's maps. It no longer drains in real time, and the water you loot during raids has been rebalanced. On top of the water changes, the update introduces the Gunplay 2.0 system with reworked weapon mechanics and balance, as well as enemy detection improvements, performance optimizations, a new map, and much more. This seems to be the game's biggest update since launch, and so far seems like a big improvement across the board. The surprise hit and movie tie-in game RoboCop Rogue City is getting a standalone expansion called Unfinished Business. The original game launched in late 2023 and was an unexpected but deserved success. The game's commitment to the original movie aesthetic and behavior of RoboCop himself was handled incredibly well. The standalone game launches this summer and seems like it'll be split between a prequel and sequel to Rogue City. In some sections, you'll play as the pre-cyborg version of RoboCop, Alex Murphy. In other sections, you'll be tasked with fighting through Omni Tower, a corporate high-rise residential complex, as RoboCop. The gameplay seems like it's taking a page out of Judge Dredd, with you ascending floors to reach whatever big bad guy is at the top. There's no firm release date yet, but the expansion is currently available for wishlisting on Steam. The Tony Hawk Pro Skater series is back on the menu. Activision officially announced a remaster of the original 3rd and 4th Pro Skater games. It'll follow in the footsteps of the 1 and 2 remake that were launched just a few years ago, modernizing the original levels and gameplay. Unfortunately, it sounds like some of the design elements are getting lost in translation. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 featured a more open-ended structure where you could skate along the levels and tackle missions and challenges however you wanted and wherever you wanted. This was a big departure from the 2-minute challenge-based system used for the previous games, but it sounds like the remaster will rework the 4th game to follow that 2-minute system instead. The marketing for the game says all of the original tours will be preserved and that all of the levels have been authentically remade with streamlined goals in a 2-minute format. AMD's new RX 9000 series GPUs are proving to be an absolute win for the company. Despite a steep $500 price tag, the GPUs go toe-to-toe with NVIDIA's more expensive GPUs and were more widely available than the RTX 5000 series. A photo floating around Reddit showed a Micro Center store with NVIDIA stock in the single digits, while their AMD stock was in the 400s. That said, AMD's new GPUs are already sold out at most retailers, so don't expect to run out and pick one up at the MSRP value until stock is replenished. Naughty Dog might be officially done with the Last of Us franchise. In a recent interview, series creator and head of the studio, Neil Druckmann, said, "Don't bet on there being more games in the franchise." This is surprising considering that it seemed like Naughty Dog were making a big effort to produce more Last of Us games. They had a live service multiplayer game in active development, and Druckmann had already written a story outline for the 3rd game. But in 2023, the studio announced that they were canceling the multiplayer game to avoid changing the studio from one focused on high-quality narrative games to one focused on live service games. With Druckmann basically shooting down future games, it's unlikely Naughty Dog will continue working on any related to the franchise outside of the ongoing TV series from HBO. Discord is potentially going public as rumors about the company working on an IPO are buzzing right now. The popular gaming chat and community server application is easily one of the biggest communication tools online today, but it's also one of the few private and independently operated tech companies around. They've been approached with buyout offers from several companies and even shot down a $10 billion offer from Microsoft. Going public could mean significant changes to the platform's approach to monetization and overall business. It's been mostly funded by venture capital firms and in-app monetization. So while the money they do make has strings attached, the company has retained control over decisions. Going public means shareholders will have a say in the company's future. In our final story this week, the Gears of War franchise might be getting the Halo Master Chief Collection treatment with their own collection edition that bundles all of the original Xbox and Xbox 360 titles together. The rumored Gears of War Marcus Fenix collection has been speculated on since 2022, but new leaks suggest the collection is actually happening. It's rumored for launch on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC with the complete campaign of the first 3 main games, but no PvP multiplayer modes. Co-op for the campaign is expected. All things considered, it would be nice to get a modern port of the franchise on current-gen hardware, especially if it's a multi-platform release. Gears was a foundational franchise for the Xbox 360 and inspired countless third-person Macho Man shooters in its wake. And that wraps it up for today's episode of This Week in Gaming. Let me know what you think about the leaked Battlefield footage if you've seen it in the comments. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe for more content like it, and up next, check out the video on Iwo Jima in Squad 44. It is built at a 1-to-1 scale, and it is absolutely insane. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.